Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC Guy. Today on the DCC Guy, we're going to go over the final steps in installing the control panel and accessory decoder here on the layout, and then we'll wire it up. After that, we should have time to test out the operation of the control panel on a few of the turnouts here at the town of Shipment. Before I go on, though, I wanted to mention a couple of things. Someone asked me whether or not they could use more than one push button or toggle switch to control turnouts using the accessory decoder. And the answer is yes. Basically, all you would need to do is, I've got the, this is the button board here. All you would need to do is wire in both of the push buttons or the toggles to the inputs here on the button board, just like I showed you previously for a single one. And once you've done that, then whichever one that is thrown will go ahead and result in an activation of the accessory decoder. Now, you can use either these momentary contact push button switches, and you can see here NCE has these in red with red, green, and black push buttons, and these are the momentary contacts. They also have the momentary contact toggle switches, and NCE recommends using momentary contact toggles. You can get away using the on-off type toggles, but these will work better in that type of situation. When you have two different push buttons set up at different locations, it doesn't matter. Whichever one is pushed last will be the one that is activated. So even if you had two people pushing it at exactly the same time, they would not be within the same microsecond of doing it. So only one of them would control the actual activation of the turnout. So depending on how it goes, you might get one canceling out the other, but it's going to work for you. So most of the time, you're not going to have two people throwing switches at both ends of a siding at the same time. With the toggle switches, the only thing that gets in the way there is some people like to have the little toggle pointing to the position of the turnout on the actual control panel. With two toggles, they're going to get out of phase. It just is going to happen. It's sort of like having two switches on your wall that control one ceiling light fixture. Eventually, one is going to be pointing up and one's going to be pointing down when the light's on or off. And there's just no way around it because you're going to be throwing each one at different times. So again, momentary toggles for toggle switches, momentary push buttons for push button switches, and you'll be good to go at multiple locations. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is the little subscribe button. I said that there would be a little red subscribe button down here in the right-hand corner of the screen. It should be still there today. I left it activated. The problem that we ran into with that is those are only visible, I believe, on laptops and desktop PCs and the browsers. I couldn't see it on my iPad app, and I could not see it on my Roku app. On my television. So some apps it's active, some apps it's not. Also in the final sequence I mentioned that there were two video links, one on either side of my head. I think those did come up on all versions of the program app. And also at the very end, as soon as I pointed to the little red app in the lower right hand corner, it disappeared and was replaced by a photo icon of me and my smiling face there. If you do click on that icon of me, it will bring up a subscribe link. So feel free to use that. I want to thank all of you that have subscribed to the site over the last few weeks. We have almost doubled the number of subscribers to the channel. I'd still like about 400 more, so go out, get everybody at your club and your friends and neighbors and whoever to go ahead and sign up, subscribe to the channel, and let's get it over 1,000. Give me that final boost over. Thanks a lot. Now, at this point, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to get set up to go ahead and show you how I mounted the control panel on the layout, and then we'll get started with some of the wiring. Okay, here's the final installation. You can see it's mounted on my fascia. The fascia is 4 inches tall, as is the control panel. And I said it was 6 inches long. It's actually 8 inches long, okay? So it does cover quite a bit of territory here in the little town of Shipment, which is located about, halfway between Lynchburg, Virginia and Charlottesville, Virginia. On this particular design, everything is set up now. All I did was mounted some brass cabinet hinges to the layout here, and also connected those to the control panel itself. I'm going to pull the camera off now and give you a close-up of that. Okay, so here, looking down, you can see I've got a piece of plywood cut into the foam road bed, or sub-road bed here, and then the hinges are attached to that, and then they're just screwed to the top of the control panel itself. So that allows it to flip up and flip down and stay out of the way when you're doing work. Now let me show you how I've mounted the actual accessory decoder. Here you can see we're just underneath the layout, just below the position of the control panel. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it's on a spring-loaded hinge so that it can be dropped down when you want to work on it, and run up out of the way when you don't want to work on it. And that way it's not visible and nobody's going to hang up on the wires or whatever. So that's fairly easy, accessible to get to for the wiring. And of course, with all of these screw contacts, it makes it a lot easier when you are doing the actual connections. So what I want to do first is I'm going to go ahead and connect some of the wires to the control panel and for the switches, and then we'll run those back here and make all of the connections at one time, and then we'll move on to doing the LEDs, or the wiring for the turnouts. Okay, so I've gone ahead, zoomed in here on the control panel so we can start doing some of the wiring work. Before we get started, I wanted to point something out to you. This is twisted pair wire. It has 2 pieces of wire, and they're twisted quite regularly together so that they're very close together. There's one that's solid color green here, and another one that is white with a green stripe. So it makes it easy to keep track of your wires, because in an Ethernet cable, which is what these came out of, it's a Cat 5 or a Cat 4 cable. You can pick this up at your local big box store like Home Depot and Lowe's and things like that, or you can order it online from suppliers. Matter of fact, the folks at North Coast Engineering sell 100-foot spools of twisted wire just for this very purpose. Okay, so you can buy that from North Coast Engineering, NCE, at their website, ncedcc.com. They have an online store there where you can buy that. You can buy the toggle buttons, toggle switches, the push button switches, wire, the accessory decoders themselves. All kinds of things are available at that website. Okay, so why do you use twisted pair wiring, and when do you use it? Well, twisted pair wiring was invented by Alexander Graham Bell in 1881 for use with telephones. And what it does is, by twisting these 2 wires very closely together and very tightly together, it helps to reject electronic noise coming in from other wire under the layout. So you've got the DC signal under there, DCC signal, you've got your power bus, possibly from your from electrical lights that you might have underneath there. So there's lots of potential sources of electromagnetic noise within the layout environment that can cause interference and static and interfere with your control signals here on these wires. So Jim Scorsese at North Coast Engineering recommends that any wire runs over 2 feet use this twisted pair wiring, okay? And it's not simply to sell you twisted pair wiring, it's because it's important in order to get reliable operations. Okay, so let's look at wiring this in here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is strip the ends of the insulation here. Okay, so now I want to, I've stripped the wires, the insulation off the end of the wires. Now let's go ahead and get these pre-tinned. Okay, fairly easy to do. Okay, I decided to actually make that connection to this push button switch right here. So let's go ahead and pre-tin it. Okay, so that's ready. We have the ends of the wire pre-tinned as well. So let me go ahead and make that connection here. Okay, bring this one around and get my tweezers and we'll make that connection. Test those. Good, solid. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'll measure this for length and go ahead and strip the ends of the wire going to the button board, and then I'll get under the layout and show you how we make that connection. Okay, here we are back up under the layout where the button board and accessory decoder are installed. As you can see, I've stripped the ends of the wire that are attached to the push button. I'm going to put the first one right here in position 1. And excuse me while I screw this in. So that's a good and tight one. Now this one has to go into the ground wire connection. Let me unscrew that. And we'll tighten that back down. And with that, our first push button contact is made. Okay, so now you can see that connection is in there, it's good and firm, and we can swing it back up out of the way if we want, or back down. So that's a quick and easy connection, and you would just continue to do that with your push button wires all the way through 4 and then 5 through 8 up here at the top with your connections. It's okay to double up, make multiple connections to wires here on the ground strip. Since I've installed position 1 push button control here, we need to go ahead and connect to position 1 here. So I'm going to slide that wire into the wiring terminal at position 1. And we'll get that connected. And then we're going to do the same thing with the black wire. Give that a couple of twists and insert it into the wiring terminal. There we go. Now, the black is going to go to connection up here. And the white is going to go to our connection over here. Just have to run all the wires first. Okay. Now, we'll be doing more wiring up above the layout here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you those are the connections. So we have the a plus and a minus wire, basically, one that will go directly to the tortoise, one that will go to our pairs of LEDs up on the control panel, and then we'll run another black wire directly from the other pair of LEDs to the tortoise to complete the circuit. So let me go ahead and get the camera mounted back up outside so we can do those. Okay, to test this out before we do any final solder connections, I've gone ahead and attached some clip leads, and I've also powered up the accessory decoder with my 12-volt power supply. Now, in this particular case, as I said, I have one wire coming from the accessory decoder that goes up to one of the pairs of LEDs. And then I have another clip lead here that comes out of the other pair of LEDs for this turnout and is connected to a wire that then goes to the tortoise and completes the circuit. Remember, the white wire goes directly from the accessory decoder to the tortoise. Okay, so after hooking up these clip leads, that gives me a quick way to be able to swap them and test to make sure that the lights light up the way I want. So right now, the turnout is set for a through route, and I've got green on both. Throw the turnout, and we have red for the crossover, and it has switched the way we want. So this is the way we need it to be set up. If it had been reversed, I can show you that we could make the opposite connections, and you can see we're showing green when it should be showing red, and vice versa. So it's a very quick and easy oops, forgot to change the positions, didn't I? Okay, let's do this one first, and then we'll go ahead and clip this one up to here. Okay, we're back to red, red, push it, and we're back to the normal direction of travel, and it's green in both ways. So now we can go ahead and make these connections. Now, another thing you need to do is check your polarities underneath, because when I first set this up, the tortoises were throwing out of sequence. So let me show you how I check that out. Okay, so this is the shot under the layout showing the temporary connections I've made to test the two turnout. Now you can see this wire here is just spliced in to the connection to the first tortoise. And then I've got two wires coming down connected to these clip leads and then going over to the second tortoise here. So again, you can swap the leads at this point on the motor, assuming I can get a handle on this. And you can hear the tortoise switching its position. So I'm going to put it back to the correct way so I don't forget. Of course, that's only an issue with when you're wiring a crossover. You have to make sure that both tortoises are wired properly so that they're throwing in the correct sequence as well. Let's go back up top. Now that we have everything wired in the proper phase or polarity so that we're getting the turnout to throw in the direction we want and the lights to show the proper color, let's go ahead and do the soldering. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to disconnect the power so that we don't blow any components here. So let me do that, and I'll come back on in a second. Now we're ready to do some soldering and make the final connections here. Now, this is no different with individual turnouts, it's much simpler, obviously. You only have one tortoise and one set of LEDs to work with instead of two. So I wanted to start with the most difficult case so that it would be simpler for the others, okay? Now let's go ahead. I'm going to disconnect here and here. And we'll pull this wire up. And because it's been pre-tinned, it should be a quick and easy solder joint. I'm going to use my tweezers so I don't burn my fingers doing this. Okay, that's good and tight. Now let's do the other one. Okay, and we're done with that one. Okay. So let's make sure it's still working, right? Okay. And both tortoises are throwing. They're both throwing in the same direction. And we're getting all of our lights lit properly. It's a very simple operation. Once you just go through these logical steps to check out the polarity and make your connections to the accessory decoder under the layout. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go off camera here and make the final connections, get everything set up, and then I'll show you from the top side that it actually does work. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and run this set of RS2s through the turnout in both directions, throwing the switch after we run it through on the straight route. So I need to disconnect one microphone and hook up another, so I'll be right back. Okay, so we're set for a straight route through the turnout now, so let's get it going. Oops, helps for me to push the right button, doesn't it? Okay, so there we go through the first turnout of the crossover, and there's the second one. Everything's working properly. We're not getting any shorts at the frog. Those frog polarities are controlled by the tortoise switch machine. Okay, we'll do a backing maneuver and then I'll throw the crossover and we'll run them across. Here goes. Okay, that set us the route to cross over. Okay, that's it. We're back and in the clear. So that pretty much wraps this project up. I hope you enjoyed this series of episodes, and I hope it gave you a better perspective on how easy it really is to design these control panels and build them and then wire them into the layout. Particularly if you break it up into nice individual steps components basically, so that you can build, you can do the graphic design, you can build the box, you can put that all together, add the switches and LEDs in another step, and then finally do the wiring and installation under the layout. Also, there's a few tricks that I've imparted to you along the way with using these various clip leads, and I will point out that I did use these nice wire strippers from All Electronics, and the wire that I used, this is 20 gauge stranded wire. You can get them in 100-foot rolls from All Electronics. So I'll add that. I think probably that North Coast Engineering also offers a hookup wire. That's basically all it is, stranded copper hookup wire in size 20. And I prefer using stranded over solid core, solid wire, simply because you're going to be maneuvering these connections every time you're fooling with the control panel, and the flexible wire is going to be much more flexible in the long run and hold up better for you instead of breaking after a few hundred cycles of moving it up and down. Anything else that I did not cover or did not cover adequately, please ask me in the comments, and I will try to address those for you in follow-up comments to yours. So that's about all I have. So enjoy the suggested video links here, and don't forget the little subscription icon here on the right. Click on that smiling face and it'll take you right to a place where you can subscribe to the DCC Guide channel. Thanks a lot, and come on back for more videos in the future.